Hello and happy Independence Day. I'm here with Dr. K, and today we're talking all about independence and relationships, which kind of, it stirs up things because sometimes we lose our independence with relationships. So we really want to talk today about how it's so important to keep your individuality, intact as you move through a relationship. And just redoing my intro because now we're live on Instagram. Hello, Instagram. Happy Independence Day. Today we're talking all about independence and relationships.
Yes, that's just such a good topic and so appropriate to fall on this day. And where is everybody?
Oh,
Oh,
well, we got Magic Mike tuning in. Well, it is a holiday, so
too
people might be
early.
like I told Dr. K right beforehand, I basically rolled out of bed, made a single cup of coffee, and here I am because we were kind of sleeping in. And so, like, people, this is not a normal day. We might have people that are hopping on that don't get to see us normally, and other people who are sleeping in who are already off having their holiday adventures. So,
We'll watch
uh,
the recording.
oh, we got a good morning from Judy and from Magic Mike, which is surprises me. Judy's in like California or something like that. So like this is like super early for her.
Oh
Or maybe
yeah,
not. I don't know what time they were waking up. But anyway,
yeah.
happy Independence Day. We got Ricky tuning in saying good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. And as always with all of these conversations, what we really like to do is go off of your questions, your comments, what's in the air for you. But our theme today is all about independence and relationships. And the big thing I would say is that when you start to get into relationship with someone, whether it's marriage, a friendship, whatever it is, you don't want to make your relationship about the other person. You don't, it's more of like maintaining who you are independently. Where do you have either common ground or different ground where you can experience each other and not like I have to do this in order to be their friend type of stuff, or if I don't convert to whatever religion, then I can't marry the person, that kind of thing. Like we give up our
Oh,
identity in order to make things work.
so often. Oh my gosh, for sure. I've done it too. It's like,
Not you. Okay.
yeah, I've done it when I've been younger for sure. I know better now, but uh the whole you fall in love and then you do whatever that person says, and if they want blonde hair, you dye your hair blonde, and if they want you to wear purple eyeshadow, you wear purple eyeshadow to make them happy. It's all about making that other person happy, but what about you? And this happens in relationships. It happens, I think, a little bit in friendships too. When kids are in adolescence, you want to fit
Oh yeah.
in,
Well, yeah,
right?
peer pressure, like you got to do everything in order to fit in because it's so important. Like we put the group above the individual, which is one thing that Carlin had talked about in some of his comedy routines. We sacrifice the individual for the sake of the group because we put it that much important. He's fine with people one on one, but even groups of two people, all something shifts, and those two people can start getting up on the one person. There's just this weirdness that can happen because now where one two people resonate and one person doesn't, now all of a sudden that plays out weirdly energetically. And I never realized it, but
Yep.
that is what it is. Two people resonate at a certain frequency, that becomes like perception of greater. And the person that isn't resonating with that is either ostracized or they stand out in not necessarily a good way. And then all of a sudden you have these weird dynamics play out.
This has so many roots in so many ways. Like, as I'm thinking about it, even when you're an adult, you're at a dinner table, you're out to dinner with people, with your whatever family, with your friends. Oh, I can't say that because they're gonna. I have to say it this way because they're gonna get upset with me, and you hold back or you lie. The white lies we say simply to fit in, simply for the need to be loved and liked. And that's, I think, something that I really encourage you to work on. I'm not saying be blatant and be a total ass, pardon my French, but the way we kind of manipulate situations so that we're not scorned, so that we are loved and liked even more. We don't say things, we're not honest. This travels all the way into relationships. You give yourself up. It happens in marriages. We see it a lot. And I get it. Things are busy, you have kids, but people really lose the things that they love in relationships. They give up who they've wanted to be. I've seen that so many times. Or I wanted to be an attorney, but then we got married, and then I, stopped
Hmm.
going to school and didn't. And then there's resentment at the end because I gave up my life and the things I wanted for this relationship, for you, and all those things start coming up. So we're encouraging you to find the balance and don't lose your individuality in the process, and keep maintaining and knowing who you are, because at the end of the day, the kids will move on to their playing field in life. And then where will you be and who are you at that point in time?
Yeah. And one example that comes to me, and my apologies, I think there was an energy thing going on, and I don't know if it was just me hearing you distorted or if you were actually distorted, but it kind of got real pixely for a little bit, and then I did a little clearing thing, and then it seemed to clear up. So we might have had a little uh, energy stuff going on where people don't want to hear what you're saying. I don't know,
Oh,
or we just had a
your voice
technology
like
glitch.
sped up for a second. Like you slowed your, it's almost like the video went, it like sped up for a very
Interesting.
brief millisecond. Interesting.
Okay,
What do you guys
well,
not want
I'll
to
do a
hear
little bit of
about
clear work.
this?
Well, it's not these people. It's maybe entities around the people. Like, don't let them know the secret to be
That
keeping
too.
your
Oh, maybe, sorry.
individuality. But the thing that I was going to give as an example is how many people, when you are meeting somebody new, you might say something like, say you love baseball, and you're really excited to find out if they like baseball. And you ask them, hey, what do you think about baseball? And they're like, oh, it sucks. I never watch baseball. And instead of like saying, oh, I like it, how many people go, me neither? And like right in an instant like that where you were excited about something, you do a 180 and you align with them in order to hopefully build a relationship. But what happens is now there's like this fake brick, if you want to call it that, for this foundation, or there's this footing that really isn't a true resonance. It's something that's different, which is fine too, but you need to know what's what so you can build that relationship the way it's supposed to be built, along integrity and honesty and who am I really? And it's
Yeah.
fine if we don't like the same things, but how we sacrifice it a lot because we're like, well, if they hate baseball and I love baseball, that means they'll hate me.
Yeah.
And then we have
Yep.
this weird thing called transference where we associate someone not liking or liking something that I like as the same as liking me, and it's really two separate things.
Yeah, that happens in the beginning of relationships so often when you first meet somebody, when you want them to like you. And then then people start to move over into their true selves. And then it's like, well, I never really liked this in the beginning, but I wanted this guy or gal to like me, so I agreed to it. But as you get comfortable, right? As people get comfortable, so it's just like a sales conversation. Like you do everything to get that person to like you, and then you finally get it, and then you get in your comfortable state, and then it's like, I never really liked baseball, and slowly you start to get back to who you are, right? It's like, I don't really like this.
Well, and how many people get married? What's the average? I didn't look the statistic up. It would be really interesting to know. At what age do people get married on average? I believe it's pretty young. I don't really know the answer to that. But like when you look at when do you actually start figuring out who you are? A lot of people don't even do that till after college, around 28. They've done the thing they call go to school, go to college, do all this stuff, and then they're sitting there and said, I did everything I was supposed to do. Now what?
Yeah.
And we start to realize that all that stuff I was told I was supposed to do doesn't really have anything to do with who I am. And a lot of people have to start unpacking all the stuff where they were influenced to be something other than what they are. No offense, mom and dad, no offense, school, society, churches, and things, but we are conditioned to fit into a cog in the machine of the world, and be the little worker bee and everything else like that. But really we're these amazing independent, uniquely authentic people that do not fit in the mold. None of us fit in the mold. Just so you know, if you think you fit in the mold, not really. You just maybe haven't found out your quirkiness yet. But all of us are so unique that once you start to step into that, it like challenges everything that we were taught,
Yeah,
and
so
it's
we're like
uncomfortable.
we're bending the machine, we're bending the box. We're bending the box to maintain to gain the balance where you can still be yourself and work with somebody else. But the tendency is to flip that, make it 10% about yourself and 90% about the other person. And I see health failing a lot with people because they stop taking care of themselves. It becomes all about everything and everybody else. And what example are you setting for yourself and for others when you do that?
True
So,
story. What do you
Ah.
guys think? Any questions coming to mind, or any examples you guys have where you might struggle maintaining your independence in relationship? And it doesn't just have to be a romantic relationship. How often does this happen at work? Or you have a job that goes against your code of ethics. I've had people who have quit jobs because of being asked to do things blatantly illegal, for example, and it goes against their code of ethics, or doing things against the EPA and getting away with it, and like all kinds of different things. Like, so, like, there's examples in the workplace too, because we're counting on that thing they call the paycheck. We compromise who we are, or selling. My own personal one was selling the optional credit protection plan coverage. I had to sell those things. I didn't really. I had a different point of view about their usefulness, we'll just say, but that is an example of having you're doing something against, like, where you are aligned ethically to fit in and to get the paycheck, or to be in the social group or whatnot.
So, so it's all more so about your own alignment and your soul's mission here and all those places, yeah, where you just the need to be accepted. So, yeah, the need to say things just to be accepted, the things you do so that people don't get upset at you versus standing in your own power and saying, yeah, I don't agree with that in a very firm and compassionate way. So, yeah, that happens
Yep.
so much on so many levels.
Uh, Now, the trick with the relationships that are more close to you is to recognize that everybody can be right. Like, if you disagree because your authenticity and their authenticity don't quite mesh, it doesn't mean one of you is wrong for your authenticity. It simply means that you both have to accept this is how the other person is. Cool. And who can I be and what can I do in creationship to that, versus I can't be with that person. And maybe sometimes there is something that's so dissonant that you can't be, but for the most part, just allowed to live and let live, kind of, is the philosophy. And the idea would be that, how do I want to say it? It's not like I'm authentic and I'm shoving my authenticity down other people's throats necessarily. You're just being in
Right.
your own space, and you're not necessarily like looking to cause other people to conform and be like you. You're just being yourself. And it is a delicate balance, especially when you're in a more intimate relationship with someone. But the big thing is, like, don't sacrifice who you are, because all
Yeah,
that does is sow seeds of resentment. Then over time, those become huge things, huge weeds in the garden, if you will, to have to deal with.
totally. And how often do you agree to do things you don't want to do just to pacify and just to fit in? And how does that feel when you have to go to some business event with your spouse and you're like, I really don't want to go? And this is a tricky one because sometimes it's necessary. You kind of have to go, but maybe never. This is, I would love your opinion on this, Hank, or anybody's opinion. With sometimes, so you're married, right? You have to go to a business event or a family gathering, and there's people there you don't fit in with, and you're like, I really don't want to go. If you have the option not to go, and it's not going to create a huge ripple and saying, okay, I'm not going to go. Or do you lie? I don't want to go. So I'm going to, how often do you lie? Tell them I'm sick. I'm going to tell them I'm sick. I don't feel good.
I definitely don't do that anymore. I don't know if I ever lied and said I was sick about things. I have to think about that, because in general, like, if you're blaming it on something else, like, energy flows where your attention goes. Are you going to start creating a sickness
I've
to
created
blame
it.
things on?
I've,
Right. And so, like, there's people like that. Like, I had one client who had fibromyalgia, and I asked him, "What do you love about your disease?" And at first, they're all upset, like, "I don't love anything about my disease. My disease sucks," or maybe it was lupus. And then, all in the middle of the session, they suddenly go, "Oh, every time I don't want to do something, I say I can't. My lupus is flaring up." And so she was using the disease as the power to say no, instead of recognizing she could just say no and not have the disease. Her
I had
lupus
a
went away,
client
by the way.
too. Yep, I had a
Yeah.
client like that too, using stomach issues to not go to events, family
Yeah.
events, because he didn't really want to go. And so you say, sit down, but here's the nuance. Your wife is going to get really upset. Why don't you want to go to this? Because I want some time to myself because I haven't had any time to myself, or whatever. Whatever somebody's reason is. So do you be honest and say, Hey, I just don't feel up to going to this event.
Well, and there's a little bit more to unpack because is it the event or is it me taking care of me? Because it could be that I just need time to myself. And now all of a sudden you're asking me to go to this other thing and I was planning to go walk by myself on the lake or something like that. That is a self-care thing. And it may not be the event. And then it's just like, well, if I'm going to go to this, I just need to make sure I plan accordingly so I take care of me. All right. Or it could be like, I just don't like the events, but there's also a possibility that you just want to support your partner and the event's more neutral. There's a lot of moving parts on this, and it's not a cookie cutter answer for every single event because there may be things like I may or may not like going to particular countries and things, but I like to support the people who like to go to the countries. So like there's times that I might go to Germany where I might like I would rather stay home if I'm going to go to Germany, for example. And it's like because I want to support my wife. Now, sometimes I do say I don't want to go to Germany. It all depends.
So looking at the reasons, I think if it's a self-care
Yeah,
reason, then it is righteous. Self-care is not being selfish. And so a
no,
lot of people will judge that. Oh, you're being selfish. Your wife needs you to go and you're not going. No, sometimes people work so much that they just need that one day where things can breathe, and the last thing
mm,
you want to do is go do something
yeah,
else. Or is it the people, or is it a business dinner or something that the people are very toxic? Then yes, maybe you want to support your wife, but you're really gonna have to pull in some tools to keep
right,
yourself grounded during that time. And you agree to
yeah,
go, or are you chickening out because you don't want to see somebody that owes you money or something? So
yeah. Or is it a short-term aversion? And what I mean by that is, if you ask the question, if I go to this event or if I choose X, Y, or Z, does my life feel lighter, heavier in 5 years? So
yes.
maybe you don't want to go, but you ask the question, if I go to this, how does my life feel in 5 years? And you actually feel that it's lighter. You're like, I don't feel like going, but I know that it's actually going to create more. And so then you're going because the ego is going to give you stuff based on past experience and things. And it might be like last time you went there, everybody was drunk and I'm in recovery and it was really sobriety threatening. But now I have 18 years of sobriety. And now I could go there and I'm going to show myself that it doesn't affect me and I'm going to come out feeling amazing. And so I was feeling heavy because of some past circumstance, which I'm empowering the past instead of my present knowing, which is I should go to this. So it all comes down to choosing and consciousness and not just automatic. I don't want to go to that. If you've already said something like that and you haven't really sat with it even for a moment, then maybe it's the ego choosing and you're not really making the choice with all of you. And that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important piece. So really ask yourself, if you react immediately, I don't want to go. Why don't you want to go? Is it because, gosh, you've worked so much that you want that time to yourself because you haven't had it? Is it because you're going to be faced with something that may be traumatic to your ego, so to speak? Is it because there's people there? Like there's a lot of times I didn't want to go to networking events, but I forced myself to go, and it's always like the best time. It always, majority of time, it turns out to be a really good thing. But I don't like, to have to be that social butterfly 100% of the time. And I was always that shy kid, so for me it takes a lot of energy and effort to go to something like that. So so in those cases it's like, is this just a matter of me wanting to hide, and that's just the ego saying be safe, when I know it's going to
Mhm.
likely be beneficial and I could meet some people there and I could enlighten some lives there? Okay, go. Put on your big boy pants and go. So
Suit up
just
and show up.
yeah, ask yourself what is the reason why I don't want to
Yeah. Now we did have a question. If you've gone along to get along, and then all of a sudden you start accessing your own authenticity, the pushback can be overwhelming. You
go.
become a liar to the other person in a way. And
Mhm.
so what would you say, like if you I take that as there's pushback and then you may not choose to be as authentic as you might feel otherwise. And what so speaking from my own experience, what can happen sometimes is a relationship goes a long time on autopilot.
Right.
People are married, they have kids, and like Anya and I have been together, how long was it? I just posted about it, like 27 years. And there was like at the beginning, it was like very conscious, and then married, kids, career. autopilot. Like life happens and those kids take up a lot of bandwidth, and she was working full time, I was working at the bank, and we just kind of drifted. And then
Mhm.
as I started moving into being self-employed, I started like growing spiritually and things, and there was like a drifting that happened, but then we both came together and we got conscious, and it was very animated at times, but we weathered it. And so, like, if it's a situation where you've drifted for a period of time, recognize that that drift, getting those boats closer together so they can sail the same ocean, but independently, it sometimes takes some doing. You have to navigate it, and you can't go always from 0 to 100. You have to take it in steps because you didn't get there necessarily overnight. Anya and I didn't get there overnight, we didn't get out of it overnight. But we weathered the storm, if you will, and now we're sailing in the same direction under our own guidance systems. To kind of use a sailing analogy, you can't
Yeah.
control the wind, but you can control your sails. And it's like both people in the relationship need to adjust their sails to start coming together.
Yeah, and
And I got
sometimes that
goosebumps with that one.
works. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I think two thoughts there is you set a lot of, I think, platforms when you first start. So if you've always kind of just, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Okay, you haven't looked at your own alignment, the things that you like, and you've always liked whatever somebody else has liked, and you've sold yourself as this type of person, and then you go along, and then yes, as Hank said, you become like you just go to the rope day to day, and then you start realizing, or you start growing, or you find something that starts growing within you into your own authenticity, and then yeah, you start to become a little different, and the other person goes, what the hell, what is this, since when do you retaliate? It's not retaliation, but just you're different now, this is not who you were, because we create this picture of ourselves when we start dating somebody. I think that just happens versus setting the platform then of this is who I am. And then it's not such a being authentic from the get go, I think is a lot of the key. And then there was another thought and it went poof. So it'll come back.
Well, and authentic from the get-go, a lot of us don't even know what that is. Like where you're
Yeah.
operating in high school, and a lot of the choices and how you're behaving in high school is because you're fitting into a social group. Unless you're in the odd group that fits in together because they're not fitting in together and they're at table 13, like from the Wedding Singer type people. But it's and recognizing that you're shifting and changing the whole way through. Like the Anya that I married in 2005 is not who I met in 1996 and got together in 97 is not the same person. Neither of us is the same person. And we oftentimes compare this moment to all the data points we have of the past. And that's why a great tool from Access with relationships is every single day you say, I destroy and create a relationship. Everything that doesn't allow that, you pot and pocket, which is their clearing statement, the short version. And you're basically saying, let's take today on its own merits. Who are we today? It doesn't even matter if yesterday I said something else. Who I am today is who I am today. And if we don't fragment then and compare, it gives us a better chance to navigate. But if it's kind of like, which star map are you, the stars change in the sky, right? As I was using that boat analogy, I'm going to use that again. If we're navigating from past data points, your ship might not be going the direction you want to go because you're using a different sky map. You have to use today on its own merits, and from today's stars you can actually navigate towards the same direction and have a lot more resonance, and I don't know what word I want to use, but a lot more will happen.
That's really
And
key because you will never be 5 again. You will never be 15 again. And so that is a really you stated that so beautifully. When you get married, you are, I don't know, 25, 30, maybe you got married late, you're 50, but you're constantly evolving, you're still growing, and you're never going to be that person that you were at the
mhm.
altar. So I think some of divorce and things happen because yes, people go back to that data point and now we're two different people. Well, either one person's evolving or growing faster than the other. And I think in those cases, if you have a person with you that is not willing to grow with you and wants to be the couch potato and not move, then sometimes you do have to make a choice because they perhaps might be hindering your growth. But if the other person is willing, then yeah, like Hank said, you start moving the ships and you start rearranging and moving in a different direction, because we are always growing and evolving, except some
Hmm.
people don't want to at that rate. So that's where the riff happens. And
Right.
yeah, and so then
Yeah.
how do you fix it?
Well, and with those types of things, if you have like I relate a lot of this to like the program when people come in and they have a willingness to get sober or not. Some of them don't, but they have a willingness to be willing. And then that's enough to get started.
It
They
is.
pray for willingness and they're just willing to be willing. And then there might be a whole period of time where they're just working on willingness and then they have the shift. And then they can have like more rapid growth, but it's like that rule of 51%. You just need to want it more than you don't. And we have Mary saying good morning on Instagram, and she had the comment that communication and always learning and making room to meet each other, making room to meet each other where we are and who we are in the present moment. That is so key because sometimes that like creating the space for the other person, that is equally important. If we need to be the space of grace and surrender to how they show up, because if you fight who's showing up, those boats are going to go this way. At least even if they show up and it's not the person that you prefer, being an allowance of how they are, who they are in that moment, it keeps the wind blowing, and at least you can still get to a little bit more common ground. Thank you for the comment, Mary.
Yeah, that's being willing is the key. If somebody's not willing, then that brings me to the other question then, Hank. What do you do? People might be asking, well, I've tried that. The other person's not budging. They're not. I keep coming and showing up, but the other person's not. And all we do is fight.
Well, I would be in the question, what's this really about? What's right about this I'm not getting? Because it's still showing up for some reason. But like if I have had a client and they have, like I always say, exhaust every possibility. And
Yeah.
then if they really feel that it's not working, then my next thing is, how much healing can you do? If you were going to end it and you know you're going to end it, what could you do to create as much healing as possible between now and that moment? And sometimes when I say that, surprise, surprise, now the focus isn't on staying together. The focus is how much healing can I do? And they start doing the healing work, and then all of a sudden they stay together. Because the target of whatever the perception is of what you want the outcome to be, that is in a sense squeezing the sponge. And even letting go of that, like just saying, okay, now I'm just going to focus on healing. I don't know what healing looks like. I'm looking at healing. They don't realize it, but they've just let go of the outcome. And when they let go of the outcome and they just focus on how can I heal, and I love the acronym for heal, helping everyone appreciate life. How can I just get a little bit more appreciation out of my life and provide that appreciation for my partner? All of a sudden, there's this stops, and there's like this going into each other's space that can happen. Not all the time, but it can happen. But like really look at the revamping the target. What am I really looking for? And just focus on the healing then. And then if you've done that and you've done everything you can, then the question is, do I want to choose this anyway, or would I like to choose something different? And that's still a choice. So there's like a lot of choice points before. I never tell someone to end a relationship. I always say, well, it's your choice. What awarenesses would you like? And my job as a healer and a coach in that capacity is to give them as much awareness as they can and healing as they can to be able to choose that whatever choice they're going to make from the space of grace, whatever that is, and then I support them through that.
Yeah, I always say start working on yourself, because we often want the other person to change. So we're after chasing the other person, manipulating ourselves. So maybe the other person changes, doing everything the other person wants. Start working on yourself and healing yourself and seeing what ripple effect that will create. Because as you start changing, the other person will usually start changing. One of two things happens. If that person is so stuck, they won't come along. But often when you start changing, becoming the good, whole person, kind, loving person that you are, then things start to change and the other person goes, this is really interesting. I like this. And then they start to kind of work on things, or they don't. So yeah, there's a lot of angles of this, but I always say start with the self work. avoid trying to change don't do the things for the sake of, oh, if I do this, then the other person's going to change. Like the whole going in, oh, well, they don't want kids, but I know when we get married, they're going to want kids. They might not.
No.
So working on the self first, it's always in this lifetime. It's all about you. What are you doing? What are you doing for yourself? And changing and uplifting yourself and making yourself the best person you can be, the loving, kind person you can be.
And there's a song from Guys and Dolls that goes, "Marry the man today and change his ways tomorrow." Yeah, don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
make sure you are at least sailboat sailing in the same direction before making a choice that you're more or less looking to kind of sail in the same direction. Magic Mike did bring up a point when with some of the things that we're talking to about. I think you're talking about when I was saying I never tell someone to end the relationship. He does say like unless it's physical abuse, and even then, it's that person's choice. The biggest thing for someone in an abuse situation is for them to let me say I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a psychiatrist, anything like that, but they need to have that empowerment. You can encourage them to look for resources. Like someone that's in that kind of thing, I oftentimes will say that's beyond the scope of what I can really coach somebody on. I would really encourage you to actually get a mental health professional. There's resources, there's helplines, there's all these types of things, and I'd be happy to see you in addition to you seeing someone like that, but I can't give advice or anything on a situation like that. So yeah.
Always for the boat. Yeah. So it's,
Always keep a spare boat. Yeah, we were kind of chuckling at Magic Mike's comment. It's good to have a spare boat. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, it's all about being, look, you enter this life kind of, I think it sound like that, but you enter this life alone, you're going to leave alone. It's not about this whole life about trying to change somebody, merge with somebody, be somebody, be with somebody in that respect. It's two individuals that are aligned and are able to mesh with that energy. So I say if both people are working on themselves and the things that make them feel good, feel God, it helps tremendously to, as two people lift each other up, they both feel good. Like, oh my gosh, I finally feel like myself again. And the other person's like, I feel like myself again. And then just the energy shifts and changes and it becomes better versus two people that are angry because the other person's not who they want to be or they're angry with themselves. It creates a lot of mess in that respect. And then we have projection in all different directions, not knowing what's real.
Yeah, I had something and then it went.
Man, Magic
I
Dragon
haven't
today.
had poof. Yeah, like I have had a thing of poof the Magic Dragon. If anybody has questions, comments, as always, we welcome them. We like to take these talks any direction. But one thing I'd like to throw out for people to start thinking about when we think about relationships, we as a society have been conditioned like there's the one type of relationship. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, so on. And what is marriage? Marriage is a social construct of like a whole bunch of political things in the past. It's different in different countries. Like, really start asking yourself the question if you're looking to be in a long term relationship, like, what really is the commitments that you're looking for? Is it till death do us part? Is it all these things that are traditional wedding vows, which I don't even Anya and I didn't have that. I asked her the other day, I'm like, what did we actually agree to? I don't know. It was in German. I had an interpreter that day that I had to like have there as like a court mandate. You have to have a non-family related interpreter because they want to make sure that they're not lying to you about what they're saying and stuff. So we had to have like this independent third party interpreter, and she's telling me all this stuff, and like so I remember it, but I don't remember like what were the actual things because it's kind of interesting like what you're agreeing to. Like if your wedding vows, people sometimes write them themselves. When you take it outside of the relationship, what things are you really looking to get out of a relationship creationship type of thing? Like figure that out now before you're going into the relationship and then see if as you start to go through the relationship are all of a sudden are you starting to sacrifice those things because
Yeah.
like if I really choose that I can't have this person and I'm so afraid of being alone that I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these three things on my little list that I know are really important to me so I can be this one person, and that's going to be great for a while, but then eventually I really want these three things and that's going to cause conflict instead of
That's
working out in the beginning. And maybe there could be a meeting of the minds between the two people that these are all the things important to me. And now, are you able to build your foundation around these non negotiables in a way?
Yeah. What is non-negotiable for you? Write your list. And so, micro, maybe the other person never knew who you really are. And that's so true. Do you really show the
Yeah.
person who you really are from the get-go? Do you state what's important for you from the get-go? Or do you give that to them later? Oh, well, I never knew 5 years. I never knew you needed that.
Well,
So, and the red flags are always there, right? But we ignore them. So there's so many things about this. We don't negotiate those red flags. We don't put the things out there. We always think it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And yeah, down the road, it's
yeah.
different and it doesn't work.
I've gone to quite a few, call them relationship coaching opportunity workshops type of things, and one of the presenters that I really like, the question was asked to her like, so for your non-negotiables, these things that are really important to you and alternate relationship styles and things, like how soon do you actually have that conversation with somebody? And her answer is second date. First date, you're just figuring out, is it even worth to have the conversation or not? But if you're
Right.
going to have a second
I
date,
like
if it's really that early, like, here, by the way, this is what I'm about. If you're going to date me, then these are the things you need to be okay with. So let's just cut to the chase now, because if the answer is no, then we don't have to waste our time seeing each other anymore. And boom, that was it. Second date done. All the things are on the table in terms of things that might be showstoppers for somebody else. That's it. What's your non-negotiable, and what do you feel would be a showstopper? Before you're invested, have those conversations. It's awkward, but like, instead of getting the dopamine and all the chemicals going when you're like 10 dates in, then all of a sudden you say, and they're like, I could never do that. And now it's falling apart. Or you never say anything. And 10 years later, after kids, it's like, I'm in a pickle. And there's a lot more moving parts now.
Yeah.
uh, let's see. What if you don't know who you are yet at the time you're contracting with your partner? Who did? I didn't know who I was. I didn't know I was going to be a crazy lunatic shaman person. Neither did Anya. But there has to be an allowance for change over time. There does, and that's the thing. Like, that's like just basing everything, the relationship, on the past instead of the present. We all change. But then the question is, like, if Anya had married me under the condition I learned German, man, I would be up shit creek, because I never learned that. But so, like, there are things like, if your relationship is foundational, built on something, and then that thing changes or something like that, then there's like paradigm shifts that might need to happen. For example, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's nothing's coming to me. But you might get married under one pretense, and then something majorly. Uh, I can't think of a good example of what I'm trying to say, so I'll
That's
just
tricky.
stop
Yeah,
there.
when you're 25, you really might not know who you are. But I think at 25, I remember there's certain things that still have transcended into where I am now that that were key points, like things that I just knew. Maybe it wasn't a ton, but it was a few things then that I just knew that are still present now. Like, I don't like authority. So it's like I don't
Yeah.
like being told what to do. So there are little parts and pieces. And yes, you will change and grow because that's just what we do as humans. The
Yeah.
goal is to evolve and change. And if but the red flags I think are there. Is this a person that it's like, I think they're going to be open to me and us moving forward. And if I grow and if I change, will this person be accommodating to that? Or will they not because they're
Well,
a narcissist or something that it's going to be really challenging because from the get-go they were already telling me what to do. So example, if I'm not great with authority. I was just that rebellious kid. So if I get with somebody that I like because maybe they're fun or something, but then I'm already finding date 3, date 4 that they're already telling me what to do and they have this energy that's very forceful. No, but I like them, but they're fun because we go on a boat and but they're
mhm.
forceful. That's a red flag. So knowing that one thing that I know about myself at 25, I don't do well with authority. If I'm going to be constantly told what to do, unless that person is going to change I'm going to say, hey, I don't like that. And they're going to be like, okay, sorry, but you're going to pick that up. So that's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah.
It's not a black and white
Yeah.
conversation.
Well,
But
and a couple of thoughts I have is, in our society, we are taught to go from 0 to 100 in relationships, because a lot of it is you can only have one person and you can only be with that one person intimately like, and that's it. And you can't do that until you've gone all in. And so like you're taught to go from, well, I really want to do this thing called, and like we're a very puritanistic culture. This is very different in other countries and things. Like in Peru it's way different. But like you're taught that these are the conditions for the relationship. I need to do the thing called go to school, get married, have kids, but I have to commit to the relationship before we get to the whole having kids part or how that's going to work for us. And you go from 0 to 100, where there's other cultures, I forget who was telling me about it, where they have like, okay, you're in this village and you're married and like, 7 years they come back together, like, how's it working? You want to stay married? You want to like not do that anymore? And they like, it's kind of like a, like a work contract. Like we have the 7 year commitment and then we're going to come together and like have our ships kind of sailed in the same direction. Or do we want something different? And if it's cool, we're going to just, we're really conditioned where for one cookie cutter way of relationships. And so that's part of it too, is like we might have an innate tendency for a different relationship style, but we've only been taught one thing, and now that one thing is in conflict, but you haven't even figured that out until you're like 30 something. And now it's like, oops. And now there's big differences, and how do you reconcile that when there's like the differences in belief systems? If belief systems change, paradigm shifts, like just morality in general. Like one person could believe in duality, one person, imagine an atheist and an agnostic or something getting together, or atheist and something else with such, and this happens. There's people in relationships that are like, one person could be an atheist and one person could be very spiritual. And I don't know how all that works, but I know it happens. But like that could cause a lot of very interesting situations. And how do you reconcile that? And that's like, well, what are relationships anyway? Relationships are really there as a tool for us to figure out who we are and to heal and that type of thing. I think that's really the primary purpose of marriage. It's like, this is my witness till death do me part, that's going to watch all my dumb mistakes.
That's so
and,
true.
and love me anyway, and I'll love them anyway as they do all their little dumb mistakes and things like that. So it's kind of like, here's my one constant thing that I'll have in my life, that, or not, because divorce is a thing. So even that can change and that's not forever anymore. But maybe that's the real thing to relationships and someone that challenges you. Because a lot of times when you get married at a younger age, at that point in your life, you're operating in duality truths. And in duality truths, opposites attract. And once you get to the part where I am authentic, like I didn't even know who I was back then. I thought I did, but like I'm really different now, right? And now like attracts like. And what am I drawing in my life now? There's a lot of people like me in my life, but my Anya and I are very different in terms of our personalities and things. So duality, opposites attract, and then you become awakened. Now you have this crazy person in your life who's contrast, like major contrast for how you actually are, and that's beautiful. That's like some amazing data points to have in order to like see how all these different things play in yourself. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
again, it comes back to like you mentioned, like using trying to fit into past data points and trying to fit into one box. A relationship is constantly evolving, so how in the world can you fit it into one box?
Yeah. Another
Mike?
Karen, she was saying, oh, I'm sorry, you
No.
fitting in my box with that. But Karen was saying, a witness to me learning my lessons. And I would take one step back from that even. Like, what if there is some truth around lessons, perhaps, but what if it's just about living life? What if life is just there and you can make lessons out of it or not, and life will still happen regardless of if you decide to learn anything or not? Maybe the lessons are optional. But I take your point. The witness to learning lessons, living life, to growing and evolving, whatever that looks like for people.
Yeah, and I think with all relationships that are even quick or longer, there are soul contracts. That's just my thought too. That person comes into your life to mirror something for you or help you grow through, learn through something. And maybe perhaps when that lesson is done, maybe move along rather than forcing yourself to stay in it when it's done.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's a continuously evolving thing, like having that person there to help you evolve and grow. And that's when two people can do that for each other. When a person can help you be a better person and continuously move you to be and grow and evolve, that is awesome. When somebody doesn't help you do that anymore and hinders that to a great degree, and you're pretty sure that lesson is done, then maybe it is time to move along. But to try to shove that into one box of this is the way it has to be because this is political and societal, and this is, like Hank said, you go to school, you go to high school, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, and then it's just this one trajectory. I
Yeah.
don't think it is.
And
It's
there's
just
a lot of different relationship styles out there. I know one person, they have a couple people that they're in relationship with, and they literally have a house contract. Everybody who comes into the relationship, they look through, they sign the contract, everybody agrees, and it's like a legal contract in a one. I'm going to be in here. This is what I'm doing. These are my responsibilities. This is this, and everybody knows where everybody else is, and they get along mostly hummingly. And it's completely different from any type of relationship style you would ever imagine. We did have someone saying that they like the idea of relationships being in the now and not the past. Edgar Tolle, Power of Now. Now is all there is.
yes.
And we've been all about boat analogies today. You cannot power the boat from the wake. The wake is the past. You can only power the boat from the present, from the wind in your sails, or Mike's little spare boat with the rose, right? And you can only power it from the present, not the past. So yeah,
Fourth of July
100%.
and boats. We're all on key today.
I like boat analogies in general, but today they seem to really be more than normal. So
Yeah, so maybe we are destructing a bit of the box and creating different possibilities
yeah,
because you have to be fluid in life. Life is not black and white in one way, and this is the way it has to be. Yet, this is how we've been structured to live.
yeah.
So,
Especially with just the way the tax system works. I'm given a tax incentive to get married and get a write-off and then have kids. Every kid, I get more money. Right? No, but like
another one,
if you
Hank.
but if you didn't do that, like in Caro, the Pacos that were not the Pacos, but like the Caro's more accurate. Like the people who live in the villages, there might be like the whole village raises the kids for one. So it's not like you have a child. It's like, oh my gosh, now I have this kid and I have to work and I have to go do the grocery shopping. No, the village raises the child, and the able-bodied people who had the kids, they're out in the fields working and things like that. But they have more of a communal living, and there might be one dad that it has kids in multiple villages, and that's normal. But here it would be like, oh my gosh, that's blasphemous, because we are very puritanistic culture. And well, actually, but the Bible even has like polygamy and stuff like that. But like the stance general, I believe, is like one man, one woman, and that's like a sacrament. And then you don't do anything else. So somewhere they changed their mind, probably to, I don't know. That would be interesting. I'm not a biblical scholar. I studied the Bible a lot. There was one point in my life I was actually wanting to be a Lutheran minister, and I had planned to go to seminary and all this stuff. I ended up becoming a different type of minister, a spiritualist of a church in Lilydale, New York. So I still realized my childhood dream or whatnot. However, it's like that thinking like that's an old text, and there's a lot of different ways to interpret it, and there's a lot of that's confliction. Anyway, there's a lot of disagreement around some people of how to interpret it. We'll say it that way.
Yeah, if you study the work of Dr. Joe Murphy, he has so many. The Bible is actually a book of analogies because back then those folks did not know what was going to happen here billions of years later, right? So they wrote it down, but they were there. It's actually a book of manifestations and how it talks about the unconscious. So when we transfer the wine into blood, it's really more about the unconscious. So he talks a lot about that. It's actually fascinating to understand. So it's interpretation and not what's the word I'm looking for? Like the actuality of what's being said. It is interpretation and analogy for meaning of a different perception of the meaning. And that's, I think a lot of people don't look at it that way.
Yeah. And
So
good morning, Anne Marie. Thanks for joining us. And then on Instagram, we had Moon Baby just saying that I've not read this part of the Bible, but she says Song of Songs is the horniest part of the Bible. I'm not familiar with that part, but I might have to look it up after the
I've
stream.
never heard of that one.
I haven't either. I watched this live stream once where it was like this guy named Morg. He's has this whole religion called Hyperianism, which is a very interesting thing. It's all based on mathematics and stuff like that. It's quite interesting. But he would do these little live streams where he would drink wine and like read from the Bible, different themes around Valentine's Day and stuff. It was a hoot. Like just a lot of Very interesting way to position things, and liberating to give yourself permission to think a little differently around some of the stuff too.
Yeah, and it's all
Um,
about themes and things in the Bible and not take I think it's taken literally a lot. And that's as I've been reading and doing research and have listened to some of Dr. Joe Murphy's work, it's not really to be taken literally. It's all about the unconscious and how it works and how what the source energy wants for you and yeah, it's fascinating. So it's
yeah, I
probably
think there's layers upon layers upon layers of meaning. And
yes.
there's also a lot of different translation interpretations. Like I've always liked the work of Rocco Errico. He helped to do like translations from Aramaic to English without the going from Aramaic to Greek or Greek or Hebrew and then to English. It was like more direct, and it was a lot of different takes. And they looked at the Bible in like historical context as well. It's just very interesting.
It's
Really,
fascinating.
the biggest thing is like, what does it mean for you? What value? Because a lot of times we can shut ourselves down from hearing good stuff in the Bible because we or any holy text, any holy text this doesn't apply to. You have people who are against it and people who will poo-poo on it, and then all of a sudden you hear something that might be good and you don't receive it because of all the people telling you all this other stuff that is bad about it. So like really with everything, look with the eyes of, is there value here for me? And I'm not caring what anybody else is saying. Because I have some major loves of some Bible verses. Like one of my favorites is, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Let your choice stand on its own. Let your choice stand. But if I say no because I'm sick and I have lupus, like now all of a sudden I'm giving my power away. So like I love little things like that. Magic Mike's referencing this cool Aramaic prayer from Aramaic, but Mike, I hate to tell you that that prayer is nowhere close to the actual correct translation. It's a beautiful prayer. There's this prayer of the Lord's Prayer, and it's talking about brethren and everything. But I've read the direct translation from Aramaic, the actual one, and it's not nearly as poetic. But I love the prayer that you're referring to. And then we have somebody commenting on Instagram. Let me go over there. Oh, she's quoting one of the things from Song of Songs. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. Ooh, look at that. I didn't realize the Bible was so naughty.
See, we don't know these things because again, we're in a box. This is the way that it is.
Cool. And we're at about 52 minutes in. So I'm going to just say, think about last comments, last call for things that you may want us to touch on because we were planning to do an hour stream. And I know Dr. K has to hop off. She has a client today. I remember to block my schedule off. Hey, but that's okay. I wonder what everybody's doing today. We're going to be working in the yard and maybe get to see some fireworks later. So that
Maybe
will
you all
be
are going on a boat now with all this boat talking.
yeah. Aren't you going on a boat?
I
Or you're not? You're not doing that. I thought you were going to go on a boat.
was gonna try all booked up.
Oh, because we when you
No
said that, like
kayaking.
we thought we would find out where, and we were going to just try to like crash your kayaking trip and just show up.
Well, you could have, but it was already all booked. Again, I did not plan. I have this terrible habit of tendency of trying to plan too late. So,
We could totally plan that though. I love going down to Mohican. See, my favorite type of kayaking is the kind where if you get tired, you could just bring up your oars and just kind of coast down the stream a
that's
little
what I
bit.
like to do.
Yeah, if you go on a lake, that was my realization. It was the first time I kayaked in the lake, and we're in Virginia, and I'm out with Casey and Max, and we're like way out there. And then when I finally turned around, I realized I had to go all the way back with
You
the
got to row back.
oh yeah. And Max had come out, and it's actually kind of a cool story. Like we get out there, and like Casey, he just takes off. He's like power like strokes back to the shore and whatnot. And Max is like out, and he's so tired. And like I give him a rope, and he like ties it to his boat, and I'm rowing, and like he's just sitting there like eating a snack. Like yeah, now Dad's like pulling double duty, right? But then you know what? He falls out of the boat. He falls out of the boat, and we're kind of close to shore at that moment. So like I'm able to get onto a branch, and I pull him up out of the boat, and we start rowing again, and I'm rowing, 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 and he falls out of the boat again. And now this time we're in the middle of the place, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I go to pull him up and anything happens, I'm going to go back and I'm going to fall in the water too. And so, like, I just kind of say a little prayer. My basic prayer, by the way, is God help me and a
Yeah.
willingness to receive. That's it. That's what got me sober. God help me, sober the next day. That was my last drink that night. But anyway, I say, God help me. And it was so easy. Like, next thing I know, like, I'm just pulling him up. He's in the boat, no problem. And then all of a sudden, this little hummingbird goes, zzz, and it's like looking right at me. And then it
Oh,
takes off. And the
oh,
beautiful thing is, in the Peruvian tradition, the hummingbird represents the connection to Wiracocha. And so I took in that moment that my prayer was answered because he was so easy to lift up the second time. It was so amazing. And I just took it that the little hand of Viricocha came down, picked up Max, and plopped in the boat. And we had no other incident. Got back fine, but I'm not a fan of the moral of the story is kayak in a river where they take you upstream and you coast down. Your biggest tension point is missing your landing point and having to row back upstream a little bit. That's the most stress you'll have. And there's even places that will let you go for free if you pick up litter. I don't know. Actually, I
oh,
don't know that since COVID, like, but they used to be like you could go and you could get a kayak for free or for a discount, and you go along the river and you just pick up trash, and then you would come back and you would have been able to kayak for free because you're like helping to beautify the environment. So
that's
that's
really
that.
cool. I like that. I do that anyway, but
Yeah,
but
but
I
you
don't
can get
pick up all the
you can
trash.
go for free if you find a place that does it. So
But yeah,
hmm.
and surrender. Yeah, that is key. That is a key. Be willing to receive and surrender, and it can be very easy. But there's so much resistance, and there's so many layers and so many loopholes of things. If we just surrender,
Yep, surrender
things
and receive.
are much easier.
I give that analogy a lot in our talks where people will be all like, universe, I want Mr. Right, and I want the house on the hill, and I want this, and I want that, all these things. And then something is sent to you and you don't take it. Like, there's a dollar on the ground, you didn't pick it up. And the universe says, well, if you won't receive a dollar, how are you going to receive a million? Right. And I
Mhm.
use the example as I'm calling up the pizza place. I would like a gluten-free pizza, vegan cheese, whatever. And then the pizza guy shows up at my house and I don't open the door. So I told the universe what I want. The universe delivered what I want, and I didn't open the door. So when we say willingness to receive, it's that. It's the actual willingness for the reception of that grace in your life.
Yeah, that's a whole
And
yeah.
do your own part. Your part is opening the door. I read this beautiful thing on Facebook. It talked about this guy, and he's like, he told his kids all the time. He's like, hey, when you're 12, I'm going to tell you the secret of life. Tells him that all the time. So of course, when the first kid turns 12, he's like, Dad, what's the secret of life? And he's like, I'll tell you, son, cows don't give milk. You milk the cows. And his whole premise was that you don't just, like, we are in a culture that you go to the store and the milk is there and you just have everything, right? But what where the milk really comes from is someone waking up at 5:30 in the morning, trudging through mud, getting the little cow, uh, tying it up and getting the bucket and actually sitting there and milking it, and then you have the fruits of your labor. And what we have forgotten as a culture is you have to get up and milk the cow. And so when we say, talk to the universe and put out what you like, well, you need to go and do your part. It can happen like magic. You still need to do your part.
You have to do the action, but that's a total point. If you ask for something, the universe gives you something in return and you say, I don't want it. Why in the world would they give you more?
Yeah. Learn to use what you have
Be
and you will
grateful for the
receive more.
yes, and you will receive more. Be grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, it's a step in the right direction, and you will get more.
Yeah. And to bring it back on the relationships, as you're in whatever relationships are in your life, what space can you be with the other person to create more for yourself, for them, and humanity? Because when you add the humanity part to it, you have now just made your micro thing macro. And
Yes.
that's when humanity goes from me to we, right?
We
And
are
so
all
like we're all the we. And so like even Dr. K, like when we talk off air, like what can we create? It's really like I'm creating for me, she's creating for her. Where do we have a middle ground where we can create something together that can become greater than the sum of its parts? And that's where you are creating with each other instead of over each other. I've been in business relationships and partnerships where it was create for, not with, and it is a completely different dynamic, and one is not sustainable.
for sure.
Learned it the hard way. Don't want to do that again. So like really, What space of grace could you be for you, for your partner, that would allow you to evolve, for all of you to evolve to the highest vision you ever had about yourself, and then offer the fruits of that to the world to help all of humanity come along with you?
I love that ending. Again, if I said, if you feel good, you feel God. If the other person is doing their thing and they feel good and they feel God, and then you guys have something together that you are helping humanity with, that is ideal. Then you have accomplished a very, very big mission. So maybe set that as be open to that as being a goal.
And
So
Instagram, you're about to get cut off because it cuts off at exactly hour. So I'm going to end the stream. Goodbye, Instagram. End the stream. You can follow on YouTube if you want. Okay, so Instagram's done. They only let you stream for an hour on Instagram. It's like you get a little error message and it just cuts them off. So at least I could give them a fair adios. Goodbye. Watch on YouTube next time and you won't get cut off mid sentence. But they didn't know that because I just said it now. So it's okay.
all right. Well,
But
we I guess she'll end here.
yep. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we will catch you next Thursday. Wait, no, we won't. I am at a festival next Thursday. So I will not be streaming next Thursday unless we pre record something. But we'll be on a week from Thursday.
For sure.
And we will catch you then. All right.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Find the button. Bye.